I'm going to spend the next 100 days in one of Ark's most hardcore mods, Dino Overhaul X. Here, well, you just gotta hope and pray that you keep your sanity. Starting off on this crazy adventure, and do note, I had absolutely no idea about docks or the hardships that I was about to encounter. All I knew is that time was against me and I had to scramble to get things done ASAP. So I went ahead collecting resources to craft the basic tools, weapons and armor. While I was busy getting my stuff in order, I spotted a strange creature flying over the island. It didn't look dangerous, but at the same time, I knew it wasn't a good sign. Anyways, there so happened to be a trike nearby. Surprisingly, I was able to tame it somehow. I grabbed a few berries and proceeded to tame the trike. It was also pretty late in the day and the temperature had dropped quite a bit. I knew I had to get some sort of shelter for protection against the cold. I went ahead gathering some resources, crafted a few thatched structures, and built a little shack for myself, complete with its own fireplace. Day 2. It was a team effort taking on some of the dillos close by. Martha and I both mowed down the first dillo with ease. Seems like the perfect combination to rack up those much needed resources. However, this didn't last, as the next duo of dillos wasted Martha in a matter of seconds. I knew it had only been a day, but I felt so lost without her. Later that day, I focused on easier targets. A few dodos had spawned in. I took this opportunity to farm some dodos for their hide and some easy levels. I also gained the DOX Book of Smarts in the process, unlocked bowlers and the bow and arrows, and decided to start farming resources for a raft. On day 3, I finally got my raft together, having it fortified a bit as well with some wooden foundations. I was also able to tame a pteranodon. Thought it would come in handy in the days ahead. Anyways, my plan was to settle down at Herbivore Island. To me, that seemed the safest area to set up camp. With my newly tamed pteranodon on follow, I set off towards Herb Island. Although, as I got closer to the island, I spotted a large figure moving in the distance. I also noticed that it was heading straight for Herbivore Island. I had no idea what it was or what it could do. I just couldn't chance it. I knew I had to leave. But at the same time, it almost felt like this giant ape was staring me down, like it was deciding to attack me or not. Either way, I wasn't planning on finding out. Alrighty, day 4. I worked more on my raft, extending it for more legroom and put up some walls. I then decided to take on a Phiomia. Yeah, it wasn't the type of Phiomia that I knew. This thing actually fought back. Luckily, I did manage to escape and had time to regroup. There was also a stego nearby. I thought taming whatever I could at this point would be awesome. Fortunately, this stego was low enough for me to tame. I stacked up some berries on my hotbar and began taming the stego. While waiting for the stego to tame up, I continued working on my raft, farming and crafting the structures required to add on to the build. But just as I tamed the stego, I noticed something lurking in the distance. Huh? What's that? What the freak? Take cover! It's a sniper! A sniper? Oh yeah! Ready to experience the ultimate World War II multiplayer shooter? Then buckle up, because Enlisted is the game for you. Enlisted turns up the heat with a strong focus on historical authenticity, keeping gameplay dynamic and putting you right in the middle of the action. And the best part is, it's on PC, Xbox and PlayStation, all with cross-platform support. And it's free! Do you know what's even crazier? Here's a cool feature I truly enjoy. This squad feature. Control your own squad, give them orders, and switch between soldiers on the fly, allowing you to stay in the action longer. And guess what? There's vehicles too. Take control of tanks, aircrafts, and more, with an ever-increasing arsenal to dominate the battlefield. Simply click the link in my description and download for free. No purchase necessary, and receive an exclusive bonus, 3 days of premium time and several orders of troops and weapons. I quickly whistled the stego to follow and retreated to the safety of my raft. Turns out it was some type of giga. Now that, peeps, was a super close call. I had to abandon my spot now that the giga was around and tried once again to seek sanctuary at Herbivore Island. This time around, things looked good. No gigantic monsters, and I had found a somewhat safe haven at the back of Herb Island. Day 5. Taking full advantage of the freedom here on Herbivore Island, I decided to venture out and tame a few helpers. trikes were the way to go. I grabbed a few berries and tamed a few trikes. Later on, I cooked up a trike saddle, and what do you know? Here on docks, trikes could actually farm just about anything. Yes, that includes metal as well. Pretty neat, huh? Now with all the resources at hand, it was time for me to get some of those crafting stations going. So I went out and farmed the resources required to craft a few things. I got myself some forges, a mortar and pestle, cooked some metal and got myself a smithy, and at the end of the day, I was able to upgrade to some metal tools and weapons. I then went ahead and squeezed in an upgrade station while I was at it. Before I went out farming apex dillos and dodos for progression loot, I wanted to spend some time fortifying my raft with stone structures and upgrading my gear. And on day 7, that's exactly what I planned on doing. I farmed up resources that I needed and worked on upgrading my raft and my gear. Okay, so just as I was about to leave Herbivore Island, I noticed that with all the farming and crafting that was done, I racked up a whole bunch of levels. So much so that the Pteranodon saddle was unlocked. Yeah, change of plans. I had to get airborne ASAP. So I went out and took on some Phiomias for their hide and meat. Sacrificed my stego as I thought I'd get some keratin, which I didn't. But I did get prime meat. That helped with taming pteranodons. There was also a heat wave going on. To sort of help the situation, I decided to strip. I guess it helped a bit. Anyways, I found a baby Phiomia. This, my friends, was key. I know, a bit brutal, but these guys gave a ton of prime meat. Just what I needed to tame up more pteranodons. I also worked on taking out a few trikes for keratin by using the roof of my raft as a vantage point. Worked like a charm. For the next 2 days, I started breeding some of the best pteranodons that I tamed. I knew breeding was different here on docks. However, I just needed a good breeding pair to breed a whole lot of spares. I had a feeling I'd be needing them. More chitin was needed, however. So while the pteranodons were breeding, I went out hunting all of the dinos that would give keratin or chitin, from stegos to trikes, and I really got lucky with one of those Ankies. Later on day 10, I began hatching and raising my pteranodons. On day 11, I set off with my new pteranodon in search for some easy apex dino kills. At my starter base, I had found an apex dodo, which was quite easy to take out with bowlers and my new hunting gear. I then took on some dillos, and at the time, I thought they were apex variants. Yeah, turns out they were just normal dillos. They actually just wasted my time. Anyways, further down the beach, I spotted a dillo that just might fit the apex description, and I had to try and find out if I could bowler these dinos. I found a safe spot to land and waited for the opportunity to make my move. Let's just say I had to figure out another way to farm apex dillos because bowlers weren't gonna cut it. Luckily, I did make it out of that situation safely. Before flying off to my next destination, my pteranodon had a quick snack. On the menu was fried apex chicken. We then took a slow flight towards Far's Peak, with a lot of stops on the way, might I add. There, I went ahead and grabbed some crystal for the awesome spyglass and to get myself a few soul balls. It was back to farming apex dinos again. This time around, I had a plan to trap those dillos. Yes, I built a tiny trap for them. It worked beautifully too, kiting them in and taking them out. Took on a few dodos as well. I had also gained the duck's superior bow. Deciding to give that a try, I farmed resources to craft a few duck's arrows. But by then, things turned south. A freaking apex araneo entered the scene. I quickly bowled my pteranodon and opted to take the spider on. I knew these would give some amazing loot. One thing's for sure, my trap came in handy, buying me some cheap shots until the araneo lost interest with it. Yeah, it was pretty much me running for dear life and spamming my hotbar buttons, which ultimately led me to my demise. Great stuff. But I was back for more. Yet again, my trap worked in my favor. And this time, I nailed the freaking spider, man. I did get what I was hoping for, the duck's long neck. However, it was the freaking blueprint. Just my luck, I thought. Day 13. I continued farming more apex dinos for loot. Tried taming an apex pteranodon, and no matter how many tries or how many ways I went about tranking this darn freaking punk, it just seemed impossible to tame. I did, however, find that the apex Phiomia gave a lot more loot than the other dinos that I had farmed. This also gave me the resources required to craft the DOX crafting station. After reading the DOX book of smarts and the tips it provided, at this stage I was to get some crops growing for pygmy treats. So I decided to build a small base on Herbivore Island, as I had another plan for my main base somewhere else. Using some of my raft structures and farming the rest, I had managed to build a compact stone base. Worked on getting up some crop plots, tamed a Phiomia for poop. That actually didn't work the way it should have, but I did find a way to extract poop out of it. Worked on some piping and grabbed some seeds to start my little farm. The next task on my list was to tame a few apex dodos for eggs. I set off with my pteranodon and found a few easy pickings to tame. I must admit, the first dodo I tried to tame wasn't so lucky. A freaking Alpha Rex just appeared out of nowhere. Sadly, the dodo didn't make it. For the other dodos, I was a bit more careful, eventually taming a mated pair. The next day, I started breeding my dodos, as fertilized dodo eggs is what was required. I then ventured off towards the snow biome to collect some oil. This, of course, was a long journey for my pteranodon, and a pit stop was needed, so I decided to stop at the edge of the snow biome. At the same time, I took this opportunity in farming some of the apex dinos nearby, and with this, I got a whole bunch of juicy loots. I then built a little shack for myself and spent the night. Early the next morning, I rushed over to where I could find oil, farmed up as much as I could without being eaten, and headed off straight for base. Yeah, all of this was actually to craft the DOX grill. For some reason, I thought this could magically turn normal meat into the DOX kinda meat. Yeah. What a screeb. Moving on. I did manage to cook up some pygmy treats. I guess that was a good thing, right? Day 18. It was time to try my first pygmy tame. I spotted a terror on the map and flew straight to it. I then bowled the little bugger and gave it a whole stack of pygmy treats. Then I waited and continued to wait. And time after time, it was the same result. A failed attempt. I was quite surprised that I was able to last so long without any interruptions. Normally, something was supposed to happen, or at least that's what I was told. Long story short, this darn pygmy ate all of my freaking treats. I was so frustrated that I decided to put an end to its greed. Sayonara, baby. So, desperate to get my hands on a DOX longneck, I began hunting down araneos. They were the best hope for getting this type of loot. I tracked down as many araneos as I could possibly track down, taking them head on. And of course, this was a dangerous task. A few deaths were to be expected, like this one after getting too close to a therizino, or this, thinking I could outrun a titanoboa. Both ended tragically. I did, however, take out a few araneos, collected some juicy loot, and by the way, I scored a ramshackle DOX long neck. Oh yeah, that's what I needed. What I completely forgot was that the upgrade station could do more than just upgrade weapons. You see, all those unwanted loot that I collected over time could be salvaged, giving me a whole bunch of high-end resources. Oh boy, this was a godsend. Now, I could unlock some of the crafting stations that could really help me, like the soul terminal, for example. Automate almost everything to do with dinos. And of course, I had to get the soul gun. I later tried my luck again with taming an apex pteranodon, but this time with the DOX longneck. Unfortunately, it seems that the longneck wasn't as good as I had hoped, although there was a juvenile Rex on the map, and I thought that this would be a sweet dino to tame if I could manage to pull it off. And that was right before I got jumped by a freaking saber, that is. When I arrived back at the Rex, I found that it was stuck in between a rock and a hard place. So I began tranking the Apex Rex, and as I continued tranking it, I quickly realized that the Rex was probably gonna run out of HP before I could actually knock it out. And within a few minutes, the inevitable happened. The Rex frustratingly died. On the brighter side, I did get some cool loot out of this. On day 21, or should I say night 21, I crafted a few DOX poison grenades, as this was recommended for larger dino taming, and set out to tame an Argy that was spotted on the map. I had to kite it away from Fast Peak with my Pteranodon and tried to kite it to a safe area at the opposite island. Then I proceeded to pop open the DOX poison grenade, and within seconds the apex Argy was knocked out. I was surprised how easy this was. Peeps, I bagged my first decent tame. Day 22. Now that I had an Argy, I had the means to explore the land a bit further. I also decided it was a good idea to take out my Argy to get it some sweet levels, and then opting to go for some of the beaver dams for their resources. I then went about and tamed an apex Dillo, as I would be needing their eggs pretty soon. On day 23, I spotted another apex Argy on the map. This one was in the snow biome. I had to be very careful kiting it to a somewhat safe area to tame. Luck was on my side, as I managed to find a spot to quickly knock out the Argy. I went ahead using the food drain dart to drop its food faster and made for a quick taming experience. Before you know it, I had tamed a mate for the Argy that I had. On my way to base, I found another Dillo, and that was a perfect mate for the Dillo I had. So I went ahead and knocked it out and got the tame. You bet! I began breeding my Argies for spears. Then I went on working on a few things back at base, cooked up more pygmy treats, worked on getting more poison grenades, and made sure my egg farm was running smoothly. Later on that day, I began hatching and raising my apex Argies. I was back at it again, trying to tame my first pygmy. Close to the red obby, I had spotted an Argy. But first, the area needed to be cleared of all the nasty little critters. Although, while I was trying to get rid of all of them, I somehow got stuck in between the Dillo and one of those river rocks. I simply couldn't find a way out. Sadly, them Dillos double-teamed me to death. Anyways, I did return, and when I did, I wiped the floor with my Argy. I then focused my attention on the Argy pygmy. I tried my best to bowler it so that I could give it the taming treats. After loads of tries with the bowlers, I eventually got lucky and trapped the Argy pygmy, and then I proceeded to give it the taming treats. From there, it was pretty much a waiting game. Well, that was until I was suddenly knocked out cold by a gigantic piece of poop. Rip. However, there was a plus side to this day. I decided to return to check up on the pygmy, and when I did, I was greeted with the best news ever. The Argy pygmy was tamed. I just couldn't believe it. Trying to get to the pygmy was another mission on its own. I didn't really want to mess things up with big old King Kong again. Eventually, I did manage to get the pygmy and got out of the area safely too. On day 26, I tried my luck at evolving my Argy pygmy. I guess I just had high hopes because, well, yeah, it didn't happen. It was another failed attempt. Anyways, I needed to get moving as it was a long flight to the snow biome once again. This time, I needed some pearls and a few other resources to get myself a fabricator. On my way to base, I spotted something really cool. Muffin Man's base. He had a few things going on for him, although I didn't see much of him in the days ahead. So, what I needed was some OP freaking apex dinos to move on to the next phase. And trust me, here on DOX, nothing was as simple as it seems. Just when you think all is good, you find yourself stuck again, wondering what to do next. However, I found some high-level spinos on the map, and I just had to have them. So, I came up with an awesome idea, and might I add, sorta cheap way to trap them as well. Oh yeah, I used the terrain and a few structures to build a trap. Now that was the easy part. Kiting them over to the trap was a different story all on its own, as one of the spinos was quite a distance away. Thing is, I just had to be a little patient with these spinos as I tried kiting them over, and yeah, I needed a little bit of luck too, because both times when I tried kiting these spinos to the trap, I almost lost my Argy. They got a tad bit too close. Anyways, I was able to trap both spinos eventually, and I was able to trank both of them with poisonous explosives. And peeps, might I add, I had a mated pair of OP freaking apex spinos, man. Let's go! Yep, you guys probably should have guessed it by now. If you did, good job! Yeah, I started breeding my spinos over the next few days. I also automated the process by using the soul terminal. I then had to farm resources to craft a spino saddle, and of course upgrade it in the upgrade station. A few mammoths in the snow biome helped generously with providing me much needed pelts. I then went ahead and used one of the earlier spinos to go out and get it a few levels, chomping on anything and everything I could take out. There was also an Apex Compy Prime around. I was in two minds here on whether to take it on or not. I guess curiosity won that battle as I charged at the Prime Compy with my leveled up Spino. Luckily, the Spino had that all-important knockback ability. That certainly helped us win this fight, and I received a bag full of juicy loot. Back at base with the treats I collected from the Prime Compy, I tried once more to evolve my RG Pygmy. First try was unlucky, but the second, now that was something. I finally got myself an Apex RG Pygmy. It was a great way to end the day. Now that I knew my Spino could take on some Prime Compies, on day 31, I spent this time hunting down those little buggers. And of course, being very careful not to attract any unwanted attention. I was in a pretty good position at this stage, or at least that's what I thought. I didn't want anything to happen to the progress that I made, so I crafted some scuba masks and headed down to the depths of the ocean with my Spino. There, I had located one of the pearl caves, which was where I wanted to set up my main base for this playthrough. Once I had safely reached the cave, I placed down a teleporter and began transferring all of my stuff from the surface to the pearl cave. I also went about building a little workshop for myself, worked on getting my crops up and running again, and sorting out all the items I collected over time. On day 34, I was done with most of the base stuff. I then decided to go out for some fresh air and farm more Prime Compies for their loot. Well, according to the Doc's Book of Smarts, that's exactly what I had to do. So that's what I did. Yeah. Day 35. I began breeding my Spinos again, also using the soul terminal to help. Those extra Spinos were going to come in handy pretty soon. I then went ahead to check out the 2 summoning artifacts that I received from the Prime Compy hunt. From those, I spawned a tame Jerboa Pygmy, which I needed, so I was good with that. And then I spawned in a tamed Bloodstalker. Yeah, that one I wasn't really into. Never got into the whole Genesis thing. Anyways, I thought it would be a good idea to go after a golden dodo that I saw on the map. Wow, you see, that didn't last very long. After some time, the freaking dodo despawned or something. With that news, I decided to return back to base and instead evolve one of my RGs into a prime version. Oh man, now this was something special because you see, these things actually spawned in RG minions that I could control, and they do insane amounts of damage as well. Exactly what I needed. So, in order to raid a nest of its egg, you needed to be like max level, or at least quite a high level. And I wasn't there yet. But you see, this is where those extra Spinos come into play. I popped out a few of them Spinos from their soul balls, and with the S+ pistol, well, I racked up all the levels I needed for the job. From there, I set off to a known wyvern nest location, sent out my RG minions to take care of the wyvern, and well, I had free reign. I quickly snatched the egg, which was an Apex Lightning Wyvern, and made a swift escape back to base. Day 37, I just chilled back at base, set out my Wyvern egg to hatch, and I raised it. Yeah, I was definitely going to use the soul ball / terminal to help me with this one. On day 38, my Wyvern was ready, but to ride it, you had to feed it prime kibble. And I had a few of those, plus a saddle from farming Prime Compies. Done with all that jazz, I took my Wyvern out for a test flight, just to get a feel for how it moved and the sort of damage it could do. Later on, I went ahead collecting some of the resources needed to get those docks forges up and running. The awesome thing about the Indie Docks Forge was it could actually mine most of the important ores that you would need automatically, and that meant less grinding for me peeps. I then later went out to farm up more prime compies. Day 39, I went ahead evolving my Jerboa pygmy. Apparently, these were good for gambling items for loot. Yeah, I ain't a fan of the whole game of chance thing, but I thought I'd give it a shot. I eventually got to its final form. Surprisingly, from what I researched, this Jerboa was pretty good for getting high-end gear. I then went ahead maxing out my gear with the upgrade station. And yes, I did do this for all of my saddles and weapons throughout this playthrough, just in case I forget to mention it in the future. Later that day, I decided to attack a manticore nest. I must admit, I was a bit nervous about this one, but I at least had to try. I then prompted my RG minions to attack the manticore, and as I backed up, I expected the mission to fail. However, the impossible happened. My RG minions lured the manticore so far from its nest that it actually despawned, giving me free reign to raid its nest. Actually, when I got closer, I found that there were more than one nest in that area, and I grabbed all of those eggs. What a freaking jackpot, peeps. Day 40. Oh yeah, I went about hatching all of those eggs I got. Later on in the day, I took out one of the manticores for a spin. It was doing some decent amounts of damage, but it wasn't complete just yet. The manticore needed an enhanced saddle to unlock the X attack. Yeah, no comment. For the next 2 days, I focused on taming more pygmy dinos. These dinos were the key for progressing, either as super OP mounts or as buffs to help in crucial fights. The problem with taming these types of dinos is that they had a protector, that stupid dumb King Kong monkey. I swear on my life, I will eventually get my revenge. It just wasn't happening anytime soon. Still, after all that beatdowns, I managed to tame quite a few pygmies. When I finally arrived back at base in one piece, I gave it a shot at evolving my pygmies. And I was pretty lucky too, because I was able to get my giganto pygmy evolved to its final form, the apex primate. I started out the day with checking out my prime monkey. It was pretty cool, I'd agree with you on that, but its damage wasn't impressive at all. On that note, I decided to try taking on a prime raptor. Keep in mind, I still wasn't aware of the add-ons or special attributes these dinos had. I first tried with my RG. That wasn't doing enough. I then tried with my wyvern. That too wasn't working out. Both had failed attempts. The amount of damage required to beat the prime raptor wasn't enough from both of my dinos, so I had to bail this time around and focused on taking out more prime compies instead. But then I had a crazy idea, so instead of wasting them prime compies, I went about taming them. Tamed a few of them as well, as I had a special purpose for these prime compies. On my way to base, I looked out for some easy Sarco kills for their Sarco eyes. I wonder. Day 45. I had enough resources to craft a grinder. Just think about all that loot I collected and those resources I'd get with this machine. Just glorious. So then, it was time to use those prime compies I tamed. I crafted the transmute shrine and then tried to sacrifice my compies for prime hearts. I couldn't do that. You needed to ride dinos in order to sacrifice them. You couldn't ride compies. Kamz. Anyways, things got better while I was out and about. I stumbled upon an unguarded nest. Turns out it belonged to an ice dragon. I wasted no time, grabbed the egg, and vanished as soon as possible. On day 46, I went ahead with hatching my ice dragon. Oh yeah, I also managed to evolve my Doedicurus to its final form, and guess what popped up? A unique freaking Doedicurus Prime. Later on that day, I took my dragon out for a spin to see what it could do, and then decided to level it up with my spinos. Turns out that shared XP actually worked like a charm. I then flew out to see if I could spot a good opportunity, but all I could find were a few apex wyverns and a manticore, so we just wasted them and grabbed all their loot. On day 47, we took on a manticore guarding a nest. Luckily, my ice dragon made quick work on taking out this beast. You wouldn't believe it, but this nest had an ice manticore. What the actual freak? This was so freaking amazing. An ice manticore? That was pretty rare. Unfortunately, this victory was shortly lived because as I was trying to farm some golden dodos with my dragon, well, let's just say I felt the full might of a mega Dinopithecus. Yep, I lost my ice dragon too. However, I did manage to get back and grabbed the saddle out of its inventory. The next day, I continued farming apex compies for their loot. I also died to a freaking Carno somehow, and then went to raid another manticore nest with my Archie. This time, the Archie minions didn't do a good job because the manticore was hot on my tail and my minions were on cooldown. I flew as fast as I could, bobbing and weaving trying to shake off the manticore, but nothing seemed to work. Finally, after what felt like hours, my minion spawning ability was off cooldown. I quickly spawned my minions in to distract the manticore, but it wasn't over just yet. The manticore still followed, so I had to wait for the cooldown once more. This time, I deployed my Archie minions once again, buying me the time to whip out my teleporter and teleport back to base. On day 49, I remained back at base, sorting out all the loot that I had on me, which took quite a while to get in order. I also went ahead evolving my pygmies again, managing to evolve my Doed into a prime Doedicurus. Well, that wasn't really any good, so I sacrificed it, and then I finally got the chance to check out my ice manticore. It wasn't much use though, as I still needed that enhanced saddle. Oh well. Back to sorting my loot. The next 2 days, I went out taming more pygmies. These days were full with a lot of triumphs and a lot of those darn apes. That, of course, led to a whole lot of deaths. But at the same time, I bagged a whole lot of pygmies too. There was also some special loot boxes dropped from the Titan turkey that I was really interested in checking out. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything good from them. You could basically get most of the items the turkey dropped from farming normally or just from farming other dinos. Nothing truly special about those loot drops. Alrighty, now that I had a whole bunch of pygmies, my next step was to try to evolve them. But for that to happen, I had to get some things done. To craft pygmy treats, simple kibble was one of the items required. To mass produce that, I decided to hook up an industrial cooker. Then it was about getting the resources together to actually start making this. Once I had all the items ready, I went ahead cooking up some of those pygmy treats and, well, I fed them to my pygmies in the hopes that they would evolve. I must say, I had quite a few successes, mostly the Gigantors. Nothing really worthwhile, I'd say. I'm sure I'll use them for something later on. Oh yeah, I also kept on farming apex compies for more loot. It was day 53 when I was back from my compy hunting spree. I was pretty excited to check out all the loots that I managed to rack up. A couple of spawners were in the mix. Got myself a Sonomacrops pygmy, which was really cool. This little beauty helped with stam and experience points. And I also got this strange drone thingy. At the time, I didn't really know what it was for, but I did notice it had a light. So I placed them around base to light up the place. Yeah, pretty cool, huh? After sacrificing some of the unwanted prime pygmies, I went ahead to try the transmute shrine once more. This time, there was a new requirement: corrupt crystal stones. How the freak would I get that? I then proceeded to upgrade my duck sniper and then evolved some of my pygmy dinos into their final form. Unfortunately, I didn't get lucky with any more of those uniques. On day 54, equipped with my duck sniper and my leveled unique Doedicurus, I set off to a known dragon's nest. I went in with my Doedicurus and tanked the damage that was being done by the dragon. At the same time, I used my duck sniper, tagged teams with my Doedicurus, and eventually took out the apex dragon. All that was left to do was to claim my prize: another dragon egg. A bit later on in the day, I was back at the snow collecting a whole bunch of resources for use back at base. Yep, I had another dragon, but not like I had any luck keeping them. But still, dragons were pretty cool to use. So I leveled my dragon using my special method. Plus, it had some extra help. The Sonoma crops boosted the experience it got. And for the rest of the day, right up until the following day, we spent this time farming mega Kamzs. Oh yeah, this was really cool. The Kamz did an attack while it was in the water, and the dragon's fire attack with the pygmy stamp buff made a potent combination. And I bagged a whole lot of those freaking juicy loots. On day 57, I then focused on taking out some of the easier prime dinos, using the same strategy as with the Mega Kamz. Oh, guess what? I received the DOX Tech Rifle. This was so freaking amazing. I flew straight back to base to upgrade its damage. At that point, I started feeling a little adventurous, deciding to take on a prime bear. Yo, I think I got really lucky with this one. It's a good thing that bear pushed me off the side of the cliff, or I probably would have lost my Dodicarus. Also, while all this was going on, the prime dire bear got stuck under the ice. Not being able to use my Dodicarus underwater, I swapped it out for my Spino, and then continued to destroy this prime dire bear. Remembering something that I had read about the Jerboa the other day, I was inclined to test it out. Placing the dire bear's head that I just got, plus a blueprint in its inventory, I waited to see the magic happen. On my first freaking try, the Jerboa pulled out the DOX Fat Man. That was just insane stuff. Well, moving on, I then decided to go out and tame a few more pygmies. Oh man, I continued farming more prime dinos, mainly the Dodicarus, as I was still in search for the Manticore's enhanced saddle. However, while I was busy with a Dodicarus, well, this happened. I simply got slaughtered by a prime dire bear. And yes, I lost another freaking dragon. I mean, come on, give my dragons a freaking break. Anywho, I had to return to the spot. I needed to get all of the loot I collected and my dragon's saddle. Luckily, the coast was clear. It was day 60 and I was back at base, trying to evolve as many of my pygmies as possible. Yeah, I managed to get quite a few evolved that day. Later on, I went out to get another dragon egg. What could I do? These were the only creatures that I could use to farm dinos for loot, and they were good at it too. Yeah, I had a dragon egg, so you should have guessed I was back at it with farming those prime dinos. Although, this time around, I found something cool. The enhanced saddle for my Dodicarus. But also, oh frick, I lost another freaking dragon. And the thing is, I just got this one too. What the freak? The next 2 days, I just went around the map, stocking up on all of the eggs that I could get my hands on, as it seemed like I was running through dragons pretty fast and needed more options. While doing so, well, I found another dragon nest. Of course, I just had to get it. And guess what? I scored another high-level ice dragon. On day 64 and 65, the prime grind was on again. At this point, I started getting a bit desperate. No matter how many dinos I took out, I just couldn't find the Manticore enhanced saddle. But there was nothing else I could do. I just had to keep trying. While doing so, I bagged a prime phoenix and also taking on a prime deathworm with my Dodicarus. Now that fight wasn't as bad as I thought. We took it down pretty fast too. It was day 66 and my confidence was growing in my Dodicarus. We started taking on Mega Araneos. To my surprise, they were pretty easy to take out. I must mention though that I did start on medium settings, and I think around about halfway I changed the settings to easy. This was done as I am a super noob at this DOX mod thing. And also, if I ever got to the Titan fight, I probably would be doing it solo. So I just stuck to the recommended settings. Besides, the only thing that changed was on the player side, while dinos remained the same. Moving on, I then went ahead and took on my first golden dodo, and from there I went in for a prime zom dodo kill. I must say, I was pretty surprised to win that fight in all the chaos that was going on. Ooh! Day 67. Well, you already know that I defeated the Dodo, right? With that, I received the Dodo's brain, and with the brain, I could evolve my fire wyvern into a zombie wyvern. Now that's pretty sweet. Although, I did get an egg in return, so I had to leave that to hatch, and while that was going on, I went out. Here is when I decided to take on the King Kong Prime. It wasn't the mega version, but we just had to take things one step at a time. All was going well. We even got its HP super freaking low. That's when it started to flee, and that's when things got messed up. You see, somehow I got thrown off my Dodicarus close to the King Kong. So you know how that would have ended. Well, luckily, when I returned, my Dodicarus was still good. You'd think I'd call it a day after that close call. I mean, any normal person would do so. Not Kamz. That creep was back at it again. And again, I was thrown off the Dodicarus right next to the King Kong. Big rip. Fortunately, my Dodicarus had a tracker, and I managed to pull it out just in time. I guess now is a good time to call it a day. See ya! Okay, after regrouping and rethinking my strategy, I decided to stick to farming the dinos I knew I could take on, without much effort, that is. All the while still looking for the elusive enhanced manticore saddle. Did I mention that sticking to a plan was difficult? Yeah, I couldn't do it. I just had to try my luck with the Pithecus Prime. Oh boy, luckily, this one didn't go so bad. Or at least, that's what I think. It did some crazy damage to my Dodicarus, but we managed to take it out. Yeah, it was a close call, Kamz. That didn't stop me though. I still went on and farmed more prime dinos and got myself more juicy loot. Even took out another prime Dodo. Day 71. After all that farming, I was able to get a full set of enhanced ride gear and a full set of chitin armor. Righto, it was back to doing some egg runs. I went to get more manticore eggs and I tried to get another dragon egg too, but somehow it kinda just disappeared on me. There was also a prime deathworm close by, so I decided to take it on for a little late afternoon snack. With all those loot runs I've been doing, I gained quite a stash of Doc's goodies, one being prime hearts, and with those paired with my manticores, I began breeding them. While they were busy doing their thing, I continued farming more prime dinos, searching for that freaking saddle. Oh my freaking soul peeps! Finally, on day 73, I was able to find what I was looking for. But first, I needed to get rid of these little screeps in front of me, the Prime Phoenix, and just my luck, the freaking Prime Deathworm spawned in. Luckily, we could take care of both of them. And now, for the ultimate reveal, the freaking Manticore Enhanced Saddle. Now that was a thing of beauty. And I got that from taking out the very same Manticore in front of me. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful. Let's go. For day 74 and 75, I continued breeding my Manticores with another set of Prime Hearts. Found out that you could use Prime Heads to get the Corruption Crystals. And boy, did I have a ton of those. Then I went ahead to summon my very first ever Ancient Prime Dino and got myself an Ancient Scorpion. Turns out, they were just okay. Nothing really spectacular about it. After wasting my time with that, I was finally able to see the true power of a Manticore. Its X attack was a thing of beauty and did a whole lot of damage too, even though I didn't fully level up this Manticore. Well, I did some research, and with that knowledge, I decided to go out and take on a Lava Golem. A lot of peeps recommended taking out the Golem with a Lightning Wyvern, so what I did was simply evolve my wyvern to a zombie variant, waited for night as zombie wyverns would get bonuses from that, and then made my move. Although, I must say, it wasn't easy at first. The golem did some crazy damage to my wyvern. However, luck was on my side. I managed to kite the golem into the sea, and by doing this, it sort of restricted the moves that this golem could do. And then, within minutes, I took the lava golem out. All that was left to do was to claim my prize, the loot from its inventory, and the lava golem core. Please do mind Kamz. He's a bit of a screep to the whole mod scene, especially DOX. The reason behind going after the lava golem was so that I could evolve my manticore to a prime version. What I didn't realize was that the manticore was still at its first form. Not to worry though, as I had all the items needed to sort that out. There. All done. Manticore X egg acquired. I just had to leave it by the ACs for it to hatch. While I had that going on in the background, it was time to check out the next ancient dino that I got from the shrine. An ancient dimorphodon. Now this was pretty cool. Did some decent damage too and shot out firebolt from its tail. Or at least that's where I think it came from. Hopefully I'm right. Now, Kamz, now you could evolve the manticore to the prime version. And so that's what I did. But again, I received an egg. So I had to wait for it to hatch. But when it was all said and done, I rocked out with a unique manticore prime. This bad boy was so freaking insane, doing crazy amounts of damage and even one-shot a manticore X. I was so impressed with this that I decided to test out its power against the mighty Mega Dodo Rex. Nah, I'm just messing around. Although, I'm glad that shot didn't connect. I probably would have been wasted. However, I did try my luck with an Ice Manticore Prime. Now that seemed to go pretty well. And bagged an interesting artifact, a Manticore head. Apparently, this increased stats by 50%. I just didn't know how to use it. Ah, there we go. Finally, I got the manticore head to work. Although, I would need to redistribute the XP points for this manticore. I felt a bit more adventurous at this point, deciding to go after some of the high-tier prime dinos, like the Dodo Wyvern, for example. Yeah, I'm sure I could have picked an easier fight, but I was invested in this one once I took it on. This Dodo Wyvern was super fast, making this battle quite challenging. I soon realized the best way to handle this beast was to use my fire breath attack. Before I knew it, the Dodo Wyvern started running home to mommy. I wasn't gonna let that happen, so I followed and put an end to its misery. From there, I went around the map collecting more eggs just in case I needed them. We also took on a prime wyvern and had a super close call with an ice manticore prime, when luckily we were the last one standing. That was super scary stuff, peeps. On day 81, I hunted down more prime dinos and spotted a dragon that I thought I could take on pretty comfortably. Rightly so, because we just annihilated him. However, while flying back to shore, we got shot down by a mega araneo. To be honest, I did panic for a few seconds as I didn't want to lose my manticore, but I remembered about my dear friend, the Dodicarus. That was a freaking tanky beast. So I kited the Mega Araneo to us and squashed the little bug with the Hammer of Doom. Later on, I went ahead to evolve my Zombie Wyvern to a Prime Lightning Wyvern, and then decided to test it out on yet another Lava Golem. Yep, we took that one out in no time. Pretty neat, I must say. So, I really wanted to try and get a Prime Dodo Wyvern for myself. I had most of the requirements, I just needed a few key ingredients. One being another Prime Dodo Wyvern head, the other an Apex Dodo Rex. That wasn't too difficult to tame. And then I had to sacrifice my Dodo Rex with the items required for a Prime Dodo Wyvern. And boom! I had a Dodo Wyvern, which I took out to test on a Mega Araneo. Not the perfect dino to fight with this, as it kept shooting me down with its webs. But eventually, we did get the job done. The next couple of days, I went farming Mega Dinos and a few of the Prime Dinos that dropped Prime Heads. I was trying to farm corrupt crystal shards to start corrupting my armor for better enhancements. If you were wondering, I did turn on tiered bosses for these few days to allow for shards to drop. And while I was going about my business, I found a Prime Dodo Wyvern nest. Was this this even a thing? You know, I just had to check it out. However, while farming mega compies, I got too close to one of them, and my prime dino, well, it got destroyed by the mega compy. Luckily, the wyvern that got wasted was from the egg I found the other day, not actually my prime dodo wyvern, which I was truly relieved about. And then, while I was farming Araneos with my Dodicarus, jeez, I thought I was good, as the Titan broodmother seems quite a distance away. Man, was I so wrong? The broodmother just started attacking me out of nowhere. Like, I seriously almost pooped myself when that happened, scrambling to get out of the area as fast as I could. Fortunately, I did escape, but then I went ahead and continued farming more megas. Once I was able to get a few crystals, I returned to base and started corrupting my armor. Got 3 out of 5 pieces of corrupted chitin, and that, my friends, wasn't half bad. Over the next several days, I began the quest to acquire the mighty Mega Rex. Now, to achieve this, you had to farm some of the Mega Dinos to get special prime summoners. And with that, you could use to sacrifice them for tokens. All in all, 10 tokens were required to spawn in the Mega Rex. Do note, all these spawners were a game of chance. There was also another way, but by no means was that easy. So I went out for the first couple of Megas. And I must say, those were the easiest ones to farm. I took on the Megaraptor, the Dimorphodon, and Carno, and those gave me the majority of the tokens I needed. For the Prime Wyvern, I took the easiest way out. I went ahead and sacrificed Mr. Sparkles, my Prime Wyvern, for the token. Anyways, I had a Dodo Wyvern that had all 3 Wyvern abilities, and that was a good substitute. For the Zom Dodo token, I had read that it was easier to farm its compy evolution requirements to gain its tokens than to farm megas, so I chose to go that way. I must say, it was easier than it looked. We got all of those items in no time. Day 96, I found the last of the tokens from the easier sets of megas. And guess what, peeps? I just needed one more. One freaking more. And that was the hardest. Oh boy, this was the toughest one to get. So I left this one for last. The Prime Dragon token. In order for me to get this token, I had to prepare a few key requirements. Firstly, I had to try and farm the Megapithecus for an ancient lava golem summon. And peeps, this was a tough fight. Fortunately, I recognized a pattern to its attacks. Now that bought me 2 or 3 clear shots each time to take it out. And after a few attempts, I bagged the ancient lava golem. If you thought that was bad, then this one was even crazier. One of the toughest fights of all the fights that I had combined. And this was the freaking Mega Zombie Wyvern. Now this was spawned at the death of a normal Mega Wyvern, which was pretty easy to take out. But the zombie freak did that hit, and it hit hard. Both times I came so close to death. I seriously had no idea what I was doing or how to take this on. And somehow, by sheer luck, we managed to destroy those zombie wyverns and finally bagged the freaking Prime Dragon spawner. Let's go! That night, I set out all of my tokens, readied my compy, and spawned in my very own unique Mega Rex Prime. What a thing of beauty it was. All that grinding for this very moment. Before we go to day 100, I want to take this opportunity and send out a huge thank you to Enlisted for sponsoring this video. Click the link in my description and download Enlisted today for free. Day 100, peeps. I knew I still had a ton of work left to do in order to take on Titans. However, remember when I said I'll have my revenge? Oh yeah, it was monkey time, peeps. I decided to take on the Mega King Kong. And you know, I thought this was going to be an easy walkover. Man, was I wrong? This ape put up quite a fight, dealing insane amounts of damage to my Rex. And might I add, that I had like 1 million HP on this puppy. Well, we gave it our best shot. With all the might we had and like a gazillion chumps, we gnawed away at its HP, making the monkey tremble. I think it got scared because it tried to hightail it out of the fight, but it wasn't on my watch. I chased after it as I wasn't gonna let it catch its breath. We kept on munching on the Mega. Although my trusty Rex was feeling the brunt of this battle, time was running out. We needed to finish this epic showdown ASAP. In the heat of the moment, we went in for one last daring attack. With a jaw-dropping final blow, we finally destroyed the Mega King Kong.